Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a very, very special evening. The launch of Your Stick Will Not Break My Strength by our dear friend Sunil Mohan. We're really looking forward to what promises to be a warm evening of conversations and reflections on Sunil's very powerful and unique book. We wanted to start this evening off by sharing a little bit about the journey of how this book came to be. At Mara, a media and arts collective that I and a number of my friends in this room work at, we have been working for several years on issues related to gender justice and cultural resistance. In 2022, we were working on a research study on the construction of masculinity in everyday life. The process was incredibly challenging. How do we define masculinity? Is masculinity always negative or violent? How does caste, class, gender, all these different social identities influence our expression of masculinity? Our heads were buzzing with all of these questions, and we turned to our dear friends Rumi and Sunil for guidance. Rumi and Sunil have been an integral part of Bangalore's activist fabric for several years. They have worked tirelessly for the rights and dignity of sexual minorities and queer movements. Drawing on their own experiences, they have always argued for a more expansive view of gender identity and have always posed very difficult questions to us, allowing us to unlearn and relook at our own positions and assumptions. In 2022, we invited Sunil to be one of 11 research fellows who contributed to our research study. As Sunil began to write, we soon realized that his reflections and questions far exceeded the scope of the research study and had to take the form of a book. It took some persuasion from Rumi and Ekta to convince Sunil to write his book, mostly because Sunil has always been apprehensive about writing an autobiography and of centering an individual story over collective struggles. However, he finally agreed, and so the process of writing this book began as a conversation between Rumi, Ekta, and Sunil. Sunil's ability to look honestly and critically at his own life and the movements that he has been part of are reflected in the chapters of the book: silence, contradictions, friendships, mistakes, cinema, blind spots in social movements, and how each of these phases of his life has shifted and reformed his masculinity. I remember Ekta recounting the intensity of this process, how Rumi, Sunil, and Ekta would argue for hours over a single sentence because Sunil would be critical of every word. He is well aware of the weight of language. What makes this book unique for us is how honest and critical Sunil is in the way he looks at his own life and the movements that he has been part of. The book ultimately reflects Sunil's belief that gender is not an identity, but an expression, and everyone should have the freedom to script their own masculinity. Before we move on, a few thank yous are in order. We would like to thank Edelgift Foundation for their support in publishing the initial research study which laid the foundation for this book. Our heartfelt gratitude to Urvashi Butalia, who, with so much trust and belief, guided this process and supported us at every stage. Thank you, Urvashi, and thank you, Zuban. With that, I'd like to invite Ekta, my friend and colleague at Mara, to come to stage and introduce the next part of the evening. Thank you.
Um, let's hear a louder applause because this is a really important moment for all of us. Deeply emotional and also, I think, a very special marker in what will be history, I suppose. I think I will first introduce our panelists onto stage and then we'll move on. First, I would like to call Dr. Gogu Shamla onto stage. Um, Dr. Gogu Shamla is one of the foremost contemporary inventive Dalit writers in the country. She holds a PhD in Dalit women's biographies, gender and caste in Telangana from the English and Foreign Languages University, FLU, Hyderabad. Her collection of short stories in English, Father May Be an Elephant, Mother Only a Small Basket, is a landmark in Indian literature. It has been translated into German and French. She has produced an anthology, Nalla Podu, which translates to Black Dawn, which is a collection of 53 Dalit women's writings from 1921 to 2002. from across Telugu speaking states, which received critical acclaim in the literary world. At present, she is working as an independent scholar, writing speculative fiction and magic realism based on lived experiences of excluded communities and their knowledge of the production of agricultural, medicinal plants, and literature, history, oral stories, songs, and mythologies. Let's welcome Dr. Gogu Shamla. We are very happy that you are part of this discussion. In fact, she was one of the first people we reached out to when we finished working on the book. And I think her foreword was so warm, and we felt like, okay, we have done something special. So thank you for writing that foreword. Um, let's move to our second panelist, Reshma Bharadwaj. You'll have to deal with what you are. Reshma Bharadwaj is currently serving as an assistant professor in the Department of Social Work at Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi. Her research interests include social movements, feminist engagements with queer theory, sexuality and gender, developmental marginalization, and criminal justice social work. She completed her PhD in the Department of Social Anthropology at the University of Bergen, Norway. Reshma was also affiliated with Sahayatrika, a support organization for queer and trans persons in Kerala. Her published works include a very difficult word. You want to say it loudly? Yeah, Beyond Myths, Homosexuality in Kerala, which is in that. I'll try to read it. Mithya Kalakapuram. Okay. Death, Friendship, and Migration of Queer People, a revisit of the countryside of Kerala, and translation of the book Romantic Encounters of a Sex Worker into English, among other articles and books. So let's welcome Reshma also to the panel. Uh, I was just recalling the number of times Sunil and Rumi both would share so much about you in the writing of this book. The mention of Sahayatrika, what you all were trying to do back then, and how tough it was, and yet how brave you have been to keep this thing going. I think it inspired a lot of things in Sunil's and Rumi's work in Bangalore. So I think it's amazing that you're part of this conversation. Thank you for coming all the way. Um, of course, I'm going to invite Urvashi Butalia next. Most of you would probably know her. Most of you may know her, but I'm still going to read out her bio. So, Urvashi Butalia is a feminist publisher and writer, co founder of India's first feminist publishing house, Kali for Women. She set up Zuban, another feminist imprint, when Kali shut down in 2003. She has many decades of involvement in the women's movement in India and writes and publishes widely on issues related to women and gender. Among her best known publications is the award winning Oral History of the Partition, The Other Side of Silence, Voices from the Partition of India. Her book on the life of her Hijra friend Mona Ahmed is forthcoming, and she's currently working on a book on the women's movement in India. Let's welcome Urvashi. I think we are really lucky to have Urvashi publish this book because there were so many debates between the three of us, like how do we go about this book, like who is going to be able to understand or give it the dignity it deserves. Several questions came up, and we were also quite new to the publishing world in that sense, personally for me. And I think when we met Urvashi, it was a very warm reception of what we had kind of put together, and it felt like we could be fully uncensored in this version of the book. So there was a lot of things that we learned also in the process of writing, editing. So thank you for guiding us into this whole other world, the publishing world. Yeah, of course, the much awaited person, the chair is waiting. We welcome Sunil Mohan R. I mean, everyone knows Sunil, I think, in this room, but I think it merits just to mark what all he stands for. So Sunil Mohan is a trans man and was the captain of the Kerala State Women's Team. He has dedicated his life to the rights of sexual minorities. He worked with several organizations and NGOs. Growing tired of the hierarchies within NGO structures, he began working independently on his research interests through community consultations. Through a fellowship offered by the Alternative Law Forum, he and Rumi Harish published a report called Towards Gender Inclusivity in 2013. The report was based on 95 interviews with LGBTI communities across South India on their experiences of oppression. He has documented the experiences of LGBTI communities across India through oral histories, through a fellowship offered by CCDS Open Space Pune. Sunil also founded Rahi, an organization working for the rights of marginalized genders and sexualities. Through Mirrors, a fellowship offered by Mara on exploring the constructions of masculinities, he wrote the book Your Stick Will Not Break My Strength, a political memoir of a trans man. Sunil has won the Kamla Basin Award for his work on crisis intervention in the field of marginalized sexualities and gender for 23 years. So, yeah, I think it's a really special moment to have all of you here. And I think to have Sunil, who has been waiting for this book also to come out, because it was so many different things we were feeling. Would this really come out? Is this really happening? And somewhere I felt that I think it was really beautiful. On his birthday, we gifted him a kind of, it was not published, but we requested Zuban to send us a copy of the book. And we all had gifted him a book with several errors. But it was really nice because all of us then ended up reading our favorite excerpts to him. And it's a really special book, and I'm already trying to sell it. So please buy more copies on your way out. And of course, make sure you have it signed by Sunil, because it's a book that it just leaves, it doesn't let you forget some of the things that have been mentioned for sure. So, just to give you a glimpse of what the book sounds like, I'm going to invite two friends to read short excerpts from the book before we move to the panel discussion. So, I'm inviting a dear friend of Sunil's, Madhu, who's here with us, who's known Sunil also for many years, to please come and read the first excerpt.
Thank you, Sunil, for giving me this honor of reading the excerpt, and of course to Ekta, Angarika, and Anushi for drawing me into this very unexpectedly as I walked into the room. But yeah, it's really my pleasure, and it means something. So I'm really moved by this. Okay. Actually, the first time I felt I want to be a man was when I fell in love with a girl. I was in the 3rd grade. Even at that young age, I knew I would never be able to reveal my feelings to her. All I could do was sneak looks at her while others were not watching. Even at that stage, I had understood that I would never be allowed to marry a girl. The realization was hugely disheartening. In retrospect, when I think about it now, what was the difference between I am a man and I want to be a man? My initial I am a man was a feeling that enabled me to deliberately ignore the condescending statements around me and the social morality built around gender. At that age, the body did not matter much to me. This was until around puberty. I knew much before puberty what happened to a female assigned body biologically. That perception led to a clear-cut demand inside me to own a body that suited my mind, and that body was a male one. I want to say here that it was not just because of menstruation that I wanted to be a man. Menstruation was one of the secondary reasons because of the heavy dysphoria it caused. I have known many female assigned community members who have shared their perceptions of the journey from I want to be a man to I am a man. In fact, we would often talk about how the process of gendering began at home and how it clashed with the idea of being a man within ourselves. We enjoyed the secret knowledge and also expressed ourselves in different ways. For me, the game of cricket was my natural expression. I started playing cricket with the boys in the street of our neighborhood. I would say now that the act of playing cricket was the first assertion of my masculinity. Usually, it's considered a male bastion sport. For me and many fellow transmasculine people, cricket or other male bastion sports have been a way to assert our masculinity. My other early assertions of masculinity were through working and taking on roles outside the four walls of the home, along with my refusal to engage with the kitchen. During those times, the gender binary of feminine and masculine and the social morality that dictated it was so clear in my mind that I refused to enter the kitchen to do any work.
We asked Madhu to stop there because you have to buy the book to read the next sentence. It's super exciting. Okay. I'm inviting Anushi to read the second excerpt. It's a shorter one, and then we'll move to the panel.
Thank you. Very happy to read a very small excerpt from the book. I think I've seen the journey of this book right from the anecdotes that Sunil had shared when he was part of the research study to take this shape and form now. Very, very happy to see this journey. I have selected a small excerpt which is about silence, which I think Sunil talks about very passionately and honestly in different parts of the book. So, a few lines. When I look back on my childhood, one of the things that stand out is the time I spent with my grandmother. We both watched television together, especially movies on Doordarshan, the music program Chitrahar, as well as sports and the news. The other things that remain etched in my mind is my silence, the intense silence that helped me to negotiate and shape my life multiple times at multiple levels. Sometimes I had to push myself to break this silence and speak my mind in meetings or to explain to my friends why and how this silence was so much a part of me. Whenever I faced personal battles or problems, this silence would overtake me. I always waited for the heat of the moment to subside, and only after that I was ready to step into fight, if needed, with friends or partners. It's true that there were times when this silence would be tested, when I would have an outburst or even lose control. But for the most part, the silence stayed with me and was often accompanied by patience. Both silence and patience have stood by me in all circumstances. Silence helps me to gather myself in complex situations, deal with my own hang-ups and prejudices, and allows me to listen, really listen, to people to understand and work on crisis situations. At times, I've also felt that my silence can prove to be masculine irresponsibility. At crucial times, when cis men need to take a stand on issues, mostly personal, I've seen how they adopt silence as a weapon to shut others down, leaving them with absolutely no choice. I have introspected and critiqued myself about times when I've acted in this way, escaping responsibility and avoiding being answerable.
Obviously, I'm involved in this book because of also the most beautiful and tumultuous and crazy relationship between Rumi and Sunil. And I'd like to thank them both to somewhere intervene and kind of work this out. But let's also give Rumi a very big hand because I think Sunil could only speak so honestly to Rumi, and at points, certain things would go crazy between them, and then somewhere I just landed up. And then it was like, I don't know, sometimes I was playing different roles, but it was really beautiful to witness a friendship, a love, and trust between two people for so many years, irrespective of so many differences. And that is something to really hold on to. So I really thank you both for actually teaching many of us the value of friendship and love. Thank you. Uh, yes, so now we move on to our very, very amazing panel. We'll start with Dr. Gogu Shamla. We would like you to just share your reflections about, you've read the book, so you can tell us a little bit about what this book does to different social movements that we have been part of. where do you see this writing in some ways, I guess, disrupting what was there, and also what it allows, what all it could allow to be born? So, your reflections, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. This book surrounded me after a long time. Not just surrounding, hunting always. Um, Sometimes I have some differences, but so many issues in everyday lives with family members, even father, brother, all like men within family. How can we define them? I always confused and dilemma, because in that dilemma, Sunil given me a clarity. That is the most important thing. Politics, ideology around masculinity. So many times, even feminist politics, feminist writings, masculinity and in gender politics, always we see enemy contradiction. But my father, I never found him as enemy. But he is enemy to my mother. My father, for me, hero. For my mother, he is enemy. How can I define him? This self-contradictory thinking I facing. This book given me some clarity, some space to think and discussion. One is, and some similarities and some differences. Your stick will not break my strength. Yeah, the beautifully cover also stick with the flowers, all that. This stick, Sunil talking about his father. As a Dalit woman, this stick is not matter to me, not issue at all to me. I can dance with this stick, but I have a problem with the caste virus. It's a virus. We are aware of modern viruses, corona, but we don't know about caste virus. But we are facing with caste virus. Even virus not breaking my strength. Yeah, that is dialogue between book and Sunil arguments and me, that Sunil journey, questioning, protesting starts from family. The same journey, if I have, starts from village, not family. But Sunil given me a window to see all issues in the society, in masculinity, gender, dignity, friends, even profession, work with the NGOs, law, culture, film, what not. We know only Dashavataras. Sunil has more than avatars. Yeah, these are every person in the civil society. These connections every day we can face. And one more thing, do you have time? I fascinated with this book. I love this book. One voice. I am not victim. He said, I don't want to be a victim narrative. I love this tone. So, because we as Dalits always protesting, arguing, we are posing counter dialogues, writings, struggles. But people putting me always in victim place. That is the problem of caste mind. Even my state, Telangana state, we are facing this. There is no definition about caste. We can't see caste like stick. Not just caste mind is not just non-Dalits. Even Dalits also caste mind. Like openly we can say slaves. We are enjoying with the slaves. Slavery ideology. We are enjoying. In this dilemma, what is the victim politics? What is the self-respect politics? Even what is the human in civil society? That need to talk, that need to space to talk, write, sharing. That is only strength to writers, I think. As a writer, I can say, when I feel victim, I don't have any to write and think. My mind will stop. Like all women Gruhinis living in the safe side, in the shade of patriarchy. Dalits also living as slaves in the shades of caste hegemony. In the name of culture, in the name of dharma. Yeah. This book, every step, what we can call contemplation, he discussed very brilliant. I think one personal life, it starts with personal life to huge world. In the world, so many youth are there, children are there. They need for plural society. I think this book will healthy, friendly for plural society. Thank you.
Thank you for that, beautiful reflection. I think you really absorbed the book very closely. I know that she was saying she wanted to read a small excerpt also. Maybe you want to read it. That is there. Okay. So we'll move to our next panelist, Reshma, who's a very dear friend to Sunil and Rumi, and I think has journeyed with them for years and years now. Reshma, maybe you could also tell us how what you felt on reading this book, and what do you feel this book will do to existing movements across the board. So yeah.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. I will try to do that. And first of all, let me say it's a honor and a privilege to be here at the release of this book. Not just at the release of the book, but it is a privilege to experience the friendship of Sunil and Rumi, to be with them at the intense dialogues and discussions and debates, to experience their hospitality and their care, and also, that frustration that all of us have felt when something does not go right in the way that we want it to go, the frustrations that we experience when NGOs impose their agenda on the politics. So it has been a very intense and long friendship, and I'm thankful for that, for it. It create it nurtured my understanding of what politics is. And about this book, what is this book? You say that it's a memoir, but is it a cultural studies reader? It's a film critique. It can be essays, of collection of political essays. It's a lot of things that has come together. So it can also be a gender and sexuality reader, and for a lay person to understand without all the jargons, as well as for an academician and for a researcher as well. So it's like I'm fascinated by the book. And I think, I will start with what Gogu Shamala stopped, what I also mark the same passages about the victim narrative because uh, that was Sunil weaves a very complex sort of narrative, but it's not complicating the narrative, but it's each strand is in a web of how things are connected to with each other, so that you can talk about life without ensuring to expose that complexity that is there in the life and politics. And this about the victim narrative, I was fascinated by the way in which Sunil actually tweaks the ears of the liberal public. Liberal public is also going to be the consumers of this book as well. But I will read from that small excerpt from that book. They, meaning queer community, had been told that by coming out in the public, other community members like them would also find courage to come out. Strategy was to show off members of our community to society. Often pushed this way, our people were at risk whenever they come out publicly. Many of us were extremely frustrated by this callousness. The more traumatic this life story, the more attractive it would be for the funders, the media, and the public to gain sympathy and charity. So I'm stopping that excerpt. And how well Sunil exposes the liberal public's attitude towards the atrocities created by itself. Liberal public sets itself as the judges. So these judges who will pass judgments on the trauma and suffering of the marginalized and exploited group, deciding which story is worthy of being heard and which is unworthy. And so the liberal public passes judgments on the hierarchy of the marginalization and suffering that they themselves have created, and in the process erasing themselves as the perpetrators and projecting themselves as the saviors. And this hypocrisy is exposed in the beginning by Sunil, and it is within this hypocrisy all of us have strive to articulate a politics. So that's something a very strong political statement that is made by the book, by the outset itself. And I wish all of us will interrogate our own politics about how we are complicit in this kind of judgmental liberal public's sanction of our own politics. And throughout this book, I could read that there is another major thread in this book that I was very fascinated with, was Sunil's attempt to understand this politics of care. What is the politics of care? And Sunil writes about that politics so well and how it is intertwined with the project of masculinity, the respect, the privilege, and the space that a male body receives in a family. That's what Sunil wrote in this book. He also acknowledges how care became very gendered and also classist and casteist, and when it relies on the unreciprocated, unacknowledged, and unpaid labor of by women and by the people from the lower rungs of the caste hierarchy. And he wanted to distance himself from this gendered, masculinist, brahmanical, and patriarchal sort of take of care. He writes about he wrote that I refuse to enter in the kitchen to do any work. But at the same time, like throughout the book, for a queer person, care is also a politics of resistance against this very liberal, capitalist, heteronormative care economy, which tries to make money out of the desires and struggles of the queer bodies, while at the same time turning a blind eye on the on the medical and mental health requirements of the community, being brutally capable of disposing the certain bodies as unwanted, unnecessary. And we saw this happening during the times of COVID. And we also saw how the community rallied together, coming for each other, taking care of each other. And this maybe because of this very gendered nature of the care, I always felt that feminist politics have not have neglected theorizing about care, and took a step without though acknowledging about the care but not seriously engaging with this care. So I felt that in this book the most important strand that is available as people who try to articulate some kind of politics in the public is thinking about care, how care. So for me, the whole book read as a manifesto of care from India, from the queer community, from the trans community, from the neurodivergent communities. So this daily task of theorizing is also there in this book. And while reading this book, I also felt, I was also struck by the sense of introspection, which Sunil calls as a silence. But we need to take a step back and be reflective of what we are doing and from which locations what we do and think comes from. I was thinking about how, unreflexive I am at some times while reading this book. When many times when I dead name a queer friend of mine, I will justify myself saying that I did that unconsciously, unknowingly. But deep inside me, I also know that it also comes from a space of privilege. A privilege in the sense that I have that leisure to not be intensely involved in someone's life. So I can take a step back when I feels I'm not up to it, or else when I feel like no, this is the time when I can get involved, I get involved. So whenever they are struggling with this the process of naming themselves, of doubting themselves, of asserting themselves, so I might not have been there. So that gives me that privilege to know, to have this unconscious, unknowing ways of naming someone which they don't like. So maybe that it also shows that we have not cared enough. So this politics of care, I think that is in my reading, that's the greatest contribution of this book, and which will transform social movements in India if they are going through it. So I think I will stop it there. And thank you, Sunil, and thank you, Mara and Subhan, for calling.
Precise thing of complicity, right, which all of us have been in so many situations. And I really think it's not easy to confront yourself, which I think Sunil has contemplated, as you rightly said, deliberated on several questions. And there would be a lot of back and forth also. Sometimes he'd come back and be like, I still feel I need to write more here, remove that word. It was very, I could sense that he was in a very deep contemplation about what he has been doing, his actions, gestures. It's every little thing. So yeah, I think very well pointed out, and a very good moment, I think, for also us to reflect on these things. Thank you for your response. I'm inviting Urvashi now, who has, of course, is the publisher of the book. In the sense, Zuban Books has published this book, and we are very happy that the title is within a feminist publishing context. But also, why we wanted you to be here is also not just because it's the book release, but to also share with us your journey of publishing and how this book kind of informs even the feminist politics, or how this book also kind of asks different sets of questions. And yeah, why Zuban would choose this book as part of its history.
Thank you, Ikta. As feminist publishers, we love every book we do. The kind of publishing that independent publishers who wear their politics on their sleeves, like we do, the kind of publishing that that community does is not premised on either profit or on the fact that certain authors deserve to get more attention than others. To us, every writer that we publish is equally important. However, in the life of every publisher, there are moments when a certain book stands out for one reason or the other. And I was thinking the other day that in my life as a publisher, there have been 3 or 4 titles that I can pick out which have somehow changed something. One of them, the first of them, was a book written by 75 village women from Rajasthan. It was called Sharir Ki Jankari in Hindi. And it, despite ideologically as a feminist publisher knowing that books and feminism need to go beyond the borders of language and education and urbanism and whatever, when you actually see something like that, it is evidence that this is happening. So that book was what that meant for us. The second book that I can identify of a similar nature was a book, an autobiography written by a domestic worker called Baby Haldar, which we translated and published in English. And in English, it was called A Life Less Ordinary. And it was a story of a woman who was not literate, but whose life matched that of millions of other women in India, and who fought to change her reality. So it was very inspirational. And it kind of showed that literature, writing, is not the preserve only of those who are educated or those who belong to privilege, but that it has a life much beyond that. Sunil's book, for me, comes into that counting of books, which signal some kind of really important shift. And so I'm really grateful that Sunil, Rumi, and Mara trusted us with this book. And I'll tell you why I feel that, because it's an unusual book in many ways. Reshma and Gogo have spoken so eloquently about the content, so I will not go there. But of course, the content is what a publisher makes their choices on. But for us, what happened with this book was that from the beginning, it was a collective effort. We were approached by Mara, and a conversation with Ekta and others over a period of time, many conversations with Ekta, Angarika, Anushi, and others, just talking about the process of publishing a book and what happens when something starts off as a report and then turns into a book, and how does the author enter the picture, and how do these questions get addressed. And then there was the way in which this book was written, where it is Sunil's story, but Sunil's story as told to Rumi and Ekta. And in the telling and the speaking and the writing, it becomes everyone's story. So it became very difficult to unentangle, who was writing which, who was thinking. It was just such a beautiful collective effort where everybody's thinking, thoughts, energy morphed into the content that was being written. And then as I was looking at the first draft of the book, one of the first things readers do is turn to the acknowledgements page. Who's been instrumental in this. My God, those acknowledgements went on and on and on. And, the way Sunil had done them was initially some key big names were acknowledged, big name meaning people who had been involved more. Then there were others. And then there was, I don't know how many people, Sunil, 80, 90 something, they went all over the place. The names went here, some were repeated, some. And I started to recognize friends, people I know from here, writers. And I'm thinking, who is this guy? What kind of community does he have access to? And how have so many people helped him to write the book? You're in there, Gogu's in there, Madhu is in there, Vimochana is in there, Syeds is in there. I don't know who else is in there. Chenika is in there. I don't know, just Diti and Vihan are in there. And it just was just like everybody you could think of. So it was obviously people believed in this enterprise and helped to, were there for Sunil while he was writing it. And then I was struck by many other things, and I'll mention only a few of them. The first meeting that we had together with Rumi, Sunil, Ekta and I to discuss the book was in Koshis, right? Yeah. It was in Koshis where they told me the story of how they had actually got in there by protesting with the help of ALF, and they had marched there. But now the owner of Koshis was like, these are my children, and fried smileys appeared, and it was like a home. So when Ekta was talking about the launch, I was saying to her, let's do it at Koshis. Let's get those smileys and let's see those, So there was also that community over there, which was structured around the writing of this book. And then it was the questions that Sunil was raising in the book, the questions about silence, the questions about masculinity and what does masculinity mean, and so on. So many different questions. Now I was struck by several things. One of them was this whole question of friendship. That what friendship, and I think both of you have somehow, what friendship meant to Sunil and Rumi, and the relationship between these two friends of trust and love and care and sharing and just being there for each other. And I was also struck by the fact that as feminists, we have often thought friendships are our preserve. It's all about the solidarities we build as women working together. And here are these two people throwing that completely out of the window. Then I thought to myself at some point that, yesterday was Simone de Beauvoir's birthday, 9th of January. And someone from BBC Radio was talking to me and saying, ma'am, can you tell us what kind of influence Simone de Beauvoir had on the Indian women's movement? And I didn't really have a solid answer to that, but I was thinking that key question that she raised, one is not born but becomes a woman, if you take that translation. In some ways, we have talked so much about that in the feminist movement, about what it is to be a woman. We haven't really talked about what it is to be a man. And in many ways, this book, for me, opened that door to that discussion, which I think in today's moment is a really important discussion to have. So as a publisher, these were all the reasons that we made the choice to go for this book. And for us, it also sat very beautifully, historically, Sunil, with two previous books that we had published. One by Akai Padmashali, her memoir, and before that by A. Revati, her memoir. So in a sense, it's really important as feminist publishers for us to reflect the kind of discussions, articulations, battles, and conceptualizations that are going on the ground about questions of identity, location, marginalization, and so forth. And your book fit squarely into that. So that was another reason. And I hope that this will be the first of many such books. I hope that you will be opening the door to so many others. And finally, I'll just say that what I said at the beginning, that the collective nature of the effort was something so beautiful that I think as feminist publishers, we would have been stupid to say no to this book. I'm really glad we said yes. Rumi did the cover art. That was another thing I forgot to mention, that when we were talking about the cover, that too was a collective organization, collective experiment. Rumi sent so many of his paintings, and we discovered an artist in that. And then we chose the cover art, and one of our designers actually put it together in the form that Sunil and Rumi wanted it. So all in every which way, it was a collective effort. And I would like to invite all of you to contribute to this collective effort by doing what publishers ask readers to do: buy the book.
Thank you, Urvashi. I'm so glad you made it. And it's very important that when they hear it from the publisher, sometimes we can take it more seriously. It's worth buying it, because you've read it so many times over, and you know what it contains. So you heard all the three panelists. I think we are going to now hear Sunil for a little while, and then we'll open it up for discussions. Sunil, we just want to hear what you're feeling right now. Like, how does this feel for you to be sitting here and listening to this? Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, I'm bit nervous and scared to sit on. I always have this nervousness and fear when I saw the very formal stage. I'm like, if you ask me to come around, like come there and speak, I will speak for hours. I don't have any problem. But like this formally sitting this way is basically make me bit fear. Fear. I'm scared. And yeah. So finally we are on that book. And first of all, I'm not going to thank you anyone here, because that is I have done it in my book explicitly. So that is one more reason for you to buy the book. Right? If you want to see your name in that book, you buy. Right? Everybody's name is there, because I've done explicitly that, which is basically the thing is like I have quote everyone who have come in my life in different times. Like from everyone I have learned a lesson. Because of that, I thank everyone in that. So that is also another reason to buy the book. Yeah. Right. And yeah, it is very difficult to kind of like go back to the history of the life, because all it is not very easy for us, for queer people, trans people, to go back and visit that moments. So like that is where like when we like me and Rumi was writing, that is where we said like, okay, we need someone else. We can't write it this, because both of us were like going to be emotionally breakdown if we write together. So that's where we called Ekta, and Ekta came, and thankfully it is like it was good. I found another person who can work with me. I haven't found anyone other than Rumi who can work with me till these years. Now I found another person who can work with me, because I am a person who sit and dig for words. If the right word doesn't come there, I'll say this is not the word. Remove it. There is another word for this. There's another word for this. So they have to think and bring that word finally. And the whole sentence will be changed when we take the word From somewhere we bring. So my process of writing is always is like we'll have discussion. Me and Rumi always have discussion, and sometimes I write it down, notes. The next day, Rumi will in the morning, early morning, Rumi will sit and with my notes, he will write the paragraph and like put it, and then later again he will read it to me and I will edit. That is how I do my work. And yes, Rumi always say that like no, he has to be given an award for reading my handwriting. Because my handwriting, I only can't read after I write. I only can't read. I don't know what I write. Like I will be like searching what is this. Finally, he will read. So that bad is my handwriting is. So that is how my process of writing, and that is how I came. Always with a drink in the evening times. That can go till the morning 3 or 4. That's how I write. All my productive works have come up like that. So evening times are the best time for me to work. With a beer. And finally, the thing is like, yeah, whatever I had to say, I have said it in this book. And my job, I believe that my job is to provoke you guys to think. That I have done in this book. So the rest is with all of us. We have to do it together. So the whatever is the outcome of this book, if it effectively has to happen in movements, we have to do it together. It is not only my job. Just because I said this, it doesn't turn into say that like it is my job to correct all this. It is all of our job. So that is there. I mean, like whatever is there in the book, I have put my question, my own questions also. Like that is also my like when somebody face I mean, like, put a question, that doesn't mean that like no, they have to find an answer. It is our job to find an answer. It is a collective thing which has done. Is what I feel. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunil. I think at every stage, I feel like provoked only by Sunil. There's so much more to think about, and when we say collective, it's not an easy word to just say it and practice it and reflect on it on an everyday basis. So, thank you for sharing your thoughts and the process.
Thank you so much to the whole panel, especially to those involved in writing, publishing the book. It's clearly a real labor of love, and I've got a copy and I'm intending to get another for my best friend as well. I am not actually from like social, political, literary space, anything like that. I'm a psychiatrist, so I was thinking from like a mental health perspective, because I work with a lot of, I'm an ex-Bangalorean. I trained at NIMHANS in Bangalore, and now I have my private practice in Mumbai. So I work with a lot of young people, basically, who are either exploring, transitioning. Mainly, the population I work with is like youth, and many times they kind of speak to me about certain things. And my hope in reading the book is that I can understand from a lived experience perspective, but also from a broader perspective, like a intersectional sort of perspective, what each of you were telling. Because sometimes I feel I'm giving some advice in a session, and I feel I have to check my privilege. Like one of the people, they said to me, Madam, you are from upper middle class family, you are speaking English, you are so educated. Advice that you are giving for our families, it doesn't work because we are facing a transphobic sentiment within our family, or we are facing a particular cultural expectation regarding marriage or children, like whatever you are telling, it doesn't fit for us. So I want to actually understand, sometimes that when the movement happens at a societal level, it actually can reach every level. You know, if we are kind of thinking at a kind of this level where, you know, I am educated, I can speak English, you know, and therefore I have this liberal sort of open-minded perspective, then it doesn't work for the whole society or the whole country to change. That's what I was feeling. So those were just the thoughts I don't think it was a particular question as such, but I do feel that from a mental health perspective, this is a very impactful thing, you know, for me to understand, but also to be able to start a discussion, broader discussion with the people whom I see. So thank you very much for your excellent work, and I really look forward to reading the book. Thank you.
I would add one thing to that is like it is not that like no, it is not possible for this society to change. Changes are bound to happen. It will happen. Where to start is the question we have to think, right? So it is from us only we have to start. Like whichever space we are working, are we ready to indulge in these kind of discussions or bring these changes there? Is the question we have to ask in our spaces. Like that only it changes. I mean, like society have changed a lot. It is not like earlier. No, like sati was an issue. Isn't that changed? Like that, changes are bound to happen. It will happen. It will take time. That's the thing I would say. And in my community or my space, what I'm doing is I'm talking about these things. I'm talking about masculinity because see in each, I always say that like in each community, see there are certain things which we adapt from what we are opposing or what we are fighting against. So we adapt certain things for whatever sanctionity or whatever it is, whatever it's acceptance or whatever. So what I am trying to do is I am framing a new kind of masculinity. So that is what I'm giving into my community. And through this book, that is what I'm talking about. Like and hope that they take this seriously and discuss among them and change their attitudes.
Hello, congratulations, first of all. I actually have a question about your writing process itself. So, I have found that, like, sometimes it feels authentic to write what comes from the heart, but at the same time, digging deep also hurts, right? So, have you found a balance? If yes, what, like, just if you could give some suggestions about that.
See, my balance is always bouncing back for my community.
Hmm.
I have always, whenever I'm down, I have always thought about my community that okay, I have to do certain things. So I bounce back. I don't know if you ask how I got that courage. I don't.
Hmm.
That I can't answer because but always the thought is there in me. If something happens to me, like whatever I am thinking, I have to do for the community. Who will do that is one thing which I always make me bounce back. Even from suicides, I have bounced back. I have thought about people who are my community, who are around me, who loves me. Their faces is enough for me to bounce. So I bounce. And I will not give up on my promises. Like somebody have said, like I have actually given my life for my. So they will call me tomorrow. I have to pick up my phone. If they have any need, they will call me. That is a promise I have given to the community. How can I give up on that? I can't go. So I am like that type. So that's give me strength. And obviously, like Another thing is like the discussions and the arguments which I have with Rumi and my friends and fights. Everything give me courage to kind of come. If I have something, the immediate person is Rumi. I will talk to, and we have huge fights, but still we come back. These are the process I.
Um, yeah. So I had the good fortune of meeting you and Rumi just a couple of days back. Sorry, can you hear me now? I had the good fortune of meeting you and Rumi just a couple of days back. I was too shy to talk, but Nidra told me about your book release, and this is not a question, I'm just sharing thoughts. And I went and found the post, and the moment I read the title of the book, I was like, okay, I have to read this book. But I was also really scared, and after listening to the excerpts, I am pretty sure I'm going to break down a lot. But I'm really looking forward to reading the book. As someone who has had a very difficult relationship with gender all throughout his life, and who is also recently, trying to figure out masculinity, femininity, all of that. So yeah, I just really wanted to congratulate you and also thank you for writing this. Really looking forward to reading it. Thanks.
This is about something related to that writing process question, I guess. This process, since it was a collective, and you are also saying how it is difficult for you to go back. I mean, it is probably for every queer person or Dalit person, it will be difficult to go back and uh, see see the personal history, as in to reproduce the personal history. Did this collective work help you to detach yourself from this? Is that how did you manage to balance that emotional this thing? And just one more about title, being and becoming. How is that? I mean, could you explain the context?
It doesn't. I mean, like, I cannot detach from myself. No? So it never goes from out. I mean, like I can't come out from that. I am inside that. That is what me is. And the collective work helps because there's another person to hear out. Right? And I know, I remember that we have stopped several times, taken break, and then we come back and like start writing, and all these things were there. I mean, it is a process which is very difficult to do, but one cannot detach from that because that's an experience. That's an experience which we have been gone through. It had happened to me. So how can it go out? It cannot go out. But this is what helps. Like when we do a collective work, there's another person to hold. There's another person who is sitting and hearing. See, that is what a lot of people wants. You know, from queer community, if you ask anybody, nobody is there to hear. The patient hearing is needed for a person. That is not there. I mean, nobody is giving that. The moment somebody starts speaking, the other side person will start advising. That is not what we want. Right? So that is what the collective work will help. Is what I feel. I mean, that is what I felt always. And the other question was being in. I'm not becoming anything. I know that from my this thing started working, I am a man. Why should I become something? I don't want to become something. I am what I am, is what it means.
Reflections on writing, if you feel like. Because it's a very complex question of how, if you want to comment.
Yeah, it's a difficulty, and these ideas is so practical and path breaking ideas. Sunil and Rumi decided to stand with their community. What clearly said by Sunil, it's need. Sunil, we have huge community like that, because my experience, I'm getting memories. In my village, some talented, skilled farmer, every time he used to work his land, he cultivates everything, sugar cane and turmeric, what others, millets, colorful agriculture he used to do. We always look like he's Annadata, food giver. After some time, he's like drunken and roaming all village. Why he changed like that? Because he sold land. He has no work. He has so many money to drink. How he's not just farmer, he's a masculinity, men. How can I define him? He's a bad man or good man? Things are making so many changes. Like that, I have a great memory of that person. So when I reading this, I got that person in my mind. And this is also important thing is he has space to think and write. Space, environment, people around him, that is important, and publisher also important. Otherwise, we have so many ideas. There is no persons to listen. What is the use? That's also important. Like this book, like one beautiful tree, some flower plant. Plant wants to weather, proper weather and air, water, all that. Then only beautiful plant we can see. Without that, not possible. Yeah, here is community is so important. Mara is important. Publisher is important. Rumi important. This community is so important. So Sunil is dare to think and write, and a book come out. This whether we need this environment, this friendship, this ideology. This is only friendship, I think. How can we define the friendship? This need people. There is so many confusions. There's so many contradictions. Our people is brilliance to create contradictions. But we need space to think, space to share, space to not for ourselves, our children, our families, our villages, our states, our towns. That's what Sunil saying seriously. A final chapter, he clearly said, Sunil is not just emotional being, he is a thoughtful person. This is the thoughtful book. Thoughtful is different from emotions. You know, he's said this center point to gather to marginal communities, to discuss and to work and make society what his language. I am understanding plural society, peaceful society. My English is not good. Yeah. Whatever, every person should live in the society with good life, peaceful life, good profession, dignity. So what said in Indian Constitution? That space is not there in the society. That's why Sunil saying very seriously, I think nowadays I am so happy you are sitting and listening peacefully. Then so many people, there is no patience to think, no patience to talk. Getting angry, so many people getting angry are hungry. No thoughts. I'm seriously my observation this in my state. In my state, I can say in my state also, in public meeting. But there is no dialogue. There is no intellectual debate. But all are intellectuals without debate. That is the we are missing. This book is filling the gaps, such kind of gaps. Thank you.
Can I just add one small sentence to what was so beautifully explained here by Sunil and Gogu Shamala? Like from what I read in the book about the process of writing, and also what Sunil, Rumi, and Ekta has told me about this listening, like listening to each other. But this listening did not, end in giving advices, as Sunil was saying. And this listening was also not very patronizing sort of listening. Oh, okay, oh, did that happen? But this listening was giving respect to each other, so much respect that you dare to question what they were telling to you about. So that's how this creative process, that I was very impressed by that creative process, when you care enough to listen to each other very closely, and you care and respect each other, that you can also question the narratives that is being told. And as you said, there is a dialogue that is happening. And this book is like, when you go through this book, you can see that pulse of that dialogue speaking to you as a reader also.
We have one, two, and then yeah. Oh, sure.
While we do talk about listening and not questioning in a manner that it hurts or that it offends, especially when people are doing autobiographies or something, a personal life journey and things like that. The questioning back needs a certain integrity or trust, and it cannot be dismissive. It cannot be saying, okay, I will not add this, I will not add that. It cannot happen, because The question is about how one is talking about a particular incident. One thing about Sunil is that he never shared any personal life incident just as plain personal life incident. It was always with footnotes, it was always with critical analysis, it was always with reflections. So the notes that I made was not just about the story, but his reflections, his criticisms, his footnotes, and his understanding. Probably in the past I might have thought of it like that, but now I think of it like this. So all those notes and putting all those things together by next afternoon for me to keep it ready to read to him was very different than the regular autobiographical writing. Thank you.
Minutes. So maybe we take both the comments and then we'll kind of wrap this evening. Yes.
Just a sharing. Having known Sunil for some time, I don't want to give because when you look at time, there's a lot. But I think having known Sunil for some time, I think something that really struck for me was the power of silence and also the politics of the silence itself. Not just in the book, but also having known Sunil for over time is. And for me to constantly be amazed to see how I was living my life at that time. And I mean, when we met, this was sometime in the early 2000s, I think. So I think it is interesting for me to now watch or be a part of this or the book itself and see my journey, not just Sunil's, but see my journey of the idea of understanding silence, the idea of being comfortable and yet being uncomfortable with silence, but also something that really made me really happy about what I was trying to do is just to be myself. And I think there are a few people who have come into my life who have just be very happy with Ravi being Ravi. And I think I need to mention it. I need to mention two people here. One is Sunil, the other is Rumi. And I think that's been my constant strength. Is that when somebody sees you as who you are and not adds paraphernalia around it, it gives me a lot of strength for myself. And I think just I'm extremely happy now just to be a part of all of you reading the book, because I think I see a lot of parallels and also I see a lot of what it means to be yourself in leading a life where otherwise we're just always constantly looking at labels, right? Self labels on the people and also people putting labels on yourself. So thank you, Sunil and Rumi.
Last comment.
Thank you, Sunil, for writing this book and sort of talking about breaking and using silence. I'm a therapist and I work at NIMHANS, and I really feel that books like this should be part of the mental health curriculum, along with many other lovely books from the Zuban catalog. So while we may not be able to introduce it formally that easily across the board, but definitely apart from reading it, I'm going to sort of share your book with many others in the mental health community. And thank you very much.
So thank you all. That's our time. We need to close, but you know that Mara would not just be happy with one such conversation. We are hoping to have many such reading gatherings, longer conversations across the next 2-3 months. So you'll find us in different parts, different bookstores, maybe even our homes and offices, to just again kind of deliberate. Because after you read the book, I think the way we talk about it also will shift. So it'll be really nice to keep this conversation going. Obviously, you know what you need to do once you get out of the door. Please pick up your copy of the book and spread the word. We are going to try our level best to translate it in Kannada as well, so that it will also have a kind of different ripple effect here. So and other languages also, hopefully. And we are very, very, very thankful to the Bangalore International Center for giving us the opportunity to host this book launch here. So we'll see you in other spaces. Thank you very much. Get your copy signed by Sunil. Make sure his hand is. Okay. So thank you. Let's give all of them a very big round of applause for those very beautiful thoughts.